Today on To Be the Church, we talk about No Phone Fridays and a question that came in about our new family of churches. Welcome to the To Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it means to truly be the church in today's culture. I'm Ben. Andrew, my man Drew, is back in the building.
Dude. I'm back with a vengeance, Ben, although, yeah.
So, it's Thursday right now, but this will air on a Friday.
I ate Tyler. That's why he's not here.
You ate?
I got really hungry when I was back. He's gone.
Poor Tyler. But you just said something about tomorrow, which is today, if you're listening to this. You're doing a No Phone Friday with your family.
Yep.
What's that about?
Yeah, dude. So we just came off of a couple weeks of vacation, and we went through this very, very, very busy season with the church merger stuff with the Summit View, the family of churches, and it was super, super busy for a long time for me. And because it started like last summer when I was kind of helping those guys through some stuff, their elder team and stuff, and then when they approached to explore what now is the family of churches, when they brought those conversations up last fall, and then we started getting into that, it was just like, doing everything we're doing and that I'm doing as the lead pastor here and the growing church and family and all the stuff going on. And then even for us, like we did a massive remodel this year and stuff. So it was really a busy year in itself, but then at the same time working to lead the merger of the 5 churches, or the 2 kind of multi-churches, combined with going through interview processes and all those sorts of things that they had me do so that they could, hire me as their lead pastor or the lead pastor of the multi-church that was forming, or the family of churches that was forming. So, dude, it was gnarly. So we got some time off finally here in August, and took a real long family vacation and did some stuff, which was good and refreshing. But on it, Ben, I'm like, man, when we go back and we got this new normal, like we gotta slow down, So why are you smiling at me?
Just glad you're back.
It's like, does Tyler see here and you smile like that at him when I'm not here?
No,
when you guys are talking.
No, we just stare at each other with no smiles,
blank faces, dead inside. So dude, there's a book by a guy named Patrick Lencioni, and Death by Meeting, The Advantage. He's written a ton of books, management guy. I feel like he's a Roman Catholic. Don't quote me on that, but he's kind of like, some stuff comes off kind of Christianish, but I think he's a Catholic guy. So anyway, he wrote a book on like the 3 disciplines of a frantic family or something like that years ago. I read it years and years ago. And it talks about a family vision and sort of like his management stuff of like, just like you would sort of have a vision for your organization and kind of keep it on track and set goals and these things, like bring that intentionality to home. So over the years, I've like kind of done some of that stuff, or whatever at home and tried to implement things. But this whole kind of period, I was like, man, now that our kids, we got 2 teenagers and 2 other, a middle schooler and then a 4th grader, and this stuff's so busy, homeschooling and all the stuff at church and all the stuff with the girls, that I'm like, man, my wife and I are both like, man, we need to slow down. And so anyway, so like I wrote a full family vision for the coming year on vacation. Yeah. And
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and so it includes kind of like rhythms week to week with our schedule and these things. So, long answer to your question, No Phone Fridays is one of the parts of our weekly schedule. And what a No Phone Friday looks like.
Let me guess. You don't go on your phones on Friday.
Yeah, but dude, here's the thing. Like,
what's more than that?
Our older girls have phones now too, right? So like our 2, we have a sophomore and a junior now, and they both have phones. And so it's not just like me, right, or my wife, and like with my phone, on weekends I'll be listening to podcasts and stuff, but I'm not doing any work-related stuff. I'm not checking email. Like I don't do any of that on a weekend anyway, like especially on a Friday day off. But like my wife, like Amazon or like anything, she's, always solving problems at the house or doing meal planning or whatever else. And so for her having her phone on too is just as, and sometimes even worse than with me with work, because on a Friday I can stay away from work, but for her, that rhythm doesn't change, right? It's like people still eat, like we're still at home, and so so even if she's not doing school with the girls that day, it's like,
there's is it there. No screens at all or just no phones?
So dude, we're doing no screens Monday through Thursdays. like the full family, no screens. That doesn't count phones. Like there's
Okay.
you know, I mean the
But like no TV.
no
or,
TV, no
Wow.
Netflix or anything. Like that's Monday through Thursday, and we just found that like for the school year and during the school week, that's like it just is better. It's like kind of almost a relief for everybody, and just we got a lot to do on our property. There's space. There's all sorts of stuff. So like that's part of the rhythm too. But the no phone Friday things is like all of us. So all 4 of the phones in our house, they go off. They'll go off like Thursday night, and they won't come on until Saturday morning at our family meetings every Saturday morning. We'll have a 10 a.m. Calendar meeting on Saturday mornings where like,
Awesome. I like
where
it.
all the calendars are pulled out and we're like going through the coming week and the coming month and, you know, correlating it all. Because dude, at this phase of life, having a kid that drives now and another one on their way, like on their way to driving, not another kid on the way, like you guys have another kid on the way, literally on the way to being born. But at this phase, it's like, dude, the amount of like, this kid's got 17 birthday parties from her friends that weekend. This kid's playing basketball. This kid's doing this. And there's so much going on that like, if we don't really get out front and have those schedules aligned, it's like, there's just no breaks, you know, it's so much, it's such a fast pace and there's so much happening. And this doesn't even count like the church dynamic, right? And ministry dynamic and, you know, so yeah, that's no phone Fridays and a little bit of that family vision stuff. But yeah,
I like it.
We're trying to catch our
I think it sounds
breath. We're trying to slow down. Even like the rally cry for the fall is just slow down. Like lead with no, you know. And so anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing something similar for my family. It's called No Fun Friday, and I make sure that we don't have any fun at all.
Good.
Yeah. No. Cool. I love it, man. Well, I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you had some good time away. We have a question here. As you mentioned, some big stuff has happened recently as Northwest Gospel and some of you have come together as a family of churches. And we talked about this on the podcast a number of weeks ago and answered a lot of questions, but we got another question that came in. This person says they listened to the podcast and a lot of the questions were answered, but there was one question that they still had, and it's this: why can't churches who doctrinally agree still share resources, help each other, and be on mission together as separate churches? Why do they legally need to have a marriage merger? Aren't there examples in the Bible of separate churches doing this? So what would you say to that?
Yeah, there's not only, and what they're speaking to obviously is the, you know, us and some of you with 3 churches, us with 2 local churches coming together in a family of churches and being fully linked now, like legally linked. We are one legal entity together with 5 local churches in it. And so our finances are linked, our like all of our staff now on our side, and there is no our side, their side, like us together, you know, from all 5 churches, we all work for the same organization, you know, legally we, you know, all that's linked. So, and that's all been signed and filed, and, you know, like September 1 is like the day it goes active, but it's already filed all with the state and approved and all that stuff. So all of that stuff is together. And so that being the case, that's what they're speaking to here, you know, like, can't you just do it separately? And I think the short answer to the question is when they say can't churches do that, it's like 100%. We do that with churches all the time, right? That we share resources with and we encourage. And I just spent the last 3 days down in Bend with 6 other pastors who are at churches like ours and are guys I know that are in my cohort, my Acts 29 cohort guys. And, you know, we spent like 48 hours together and collaborating and doing these things. And we, even guys in that group, like share resources, like we'll support church plants of the other church are coming out. And so we do that all the time. And we do that within our church network or networks, Church Ventures and Acts 29 for our local church here. And so, there's no trouble with that at all. I think there's, in this specific situation, there were many, many reasons to link it all together in this phase. And so, what would you say to this? Just your initial read on the question, and then I can go into some of those reasons.
Yeah, I would say that, like you said, we do this, and churches do, whether it's part of a network or a denomination, stuff like that. It happens all the time. I think though there is a ceiling or a limit to what you can do in partnership if you have two separate kind of groups of leaders, right? Either lead pastors or elder teams or those sorts of things. I think by combining them, which is what we've done. Now we have, local elders at all five, but we have what's called the full council of elders and the leadership council, where we are now collaborating as a family of churches, and we can do even more because we really are legally and relationally together. Because like if you and you've done this a lot in Clark County. If you're helping another church or sharing resources, like you still have different elder teams and different bylaws and different church constitutions and policies, and so like you can't do everything together, and there's like a limit to that. And so this kind of takes the governor off a little bit, and it's like we can fully be together and fully operate as one family of churches. And so I think we can just even be more effective, do more ministry, be on mission together even more fruitfully and effectively.
I like what you said about ceiling and limits to what you can do, because you can collaborate, right? Like with other churches, 100%. Yeah. But there's no mechanism in separate churches of true change occurring in a culture, and in that sense, true synthesis of culture between fellow churches. And I can give an example on this. And it's not even in our state, but like my buddy Cody Cannon, right? And we're close. And he pastors Life Point Church in Woodland, California. And they have two local churches. They're a multi-church, and East Side and West Side there on their at their in Woodland, and where you're actually from, that area, Ben, Sacramento Kings fan. And so shout out to somebody on the Sacramento Kings. I don't know any of the player names, but Cody and I collaborate a ton. We'll share resources. Like those things will be there for sure. And the DNA of our churches is very similar, right? We have real similar convictions. We're in the same network, Acts 29. But even before, we actually both came in Acts 29 at a similar time from being not in a network, together. And so I think and even with Cody, there's an example of like when he was hiring his executive pastor here like last year, I was in on the interviews with his with the executive pastor candidates. I zoomed into him, but we have that kind of relationship where we're real close and, those kind of things. And he has relationships like that with other dudes. So do I, right? That there's guys you work closely like that in. We'll get suggestions, we'll get recommendations, we'll talk through church issues or leadership things or hires or those things. And that's great. And that now, number one, that kind of relationship is pretty unique, right? That close of a relationship. And locally, I have found that those kind of relationships can be really unique locally. In Clark County, I've been here almost 15 years in this county, and I have good friends that are in this county. But that level of collaboration and that close, I don't have many that are that close, right? But when it comes to this specific situation, in the position that Northwest Gospel Church and Summit View Church found themselves, respectively, in the last year. Northwest Gospel Church in a position where two churches, right? And now, just speaking, and Camas has been growing now for 5-6 years, Ben, and continuing to develop and grow and healthy unified church. East Vancouver has been growing for 14 years now, and East Vancouver getting to a point where it's become a very regional church. It's pulling from all over the region. Hundreds of people coming from the north part of the North County of our and beyond North County even to drive all the way down here to the south part of the county, almost to Camas, East Vancouver, right here on the border. So we got people driving 45 minutes, an hour at times, members from church, right? And so needing to expand into the north part of the county, plus at East Vancouver, getting to facility capacity, right? Getting to a point where 2 gatherings is just, they're getting packed and parking lots getting full and programs getting full. So you start to think through and you go, do you expand the building? Do you add a third service? Like so many things that you need to do when you start getting to those points. And meanwhile, having the heart, our churches together, Northwest Gospel, having the heart to plant in the North County and looking in that area, praying through that, looking at different opportunities for facilities or for churches to partner with. Now, go over to the other side. Some of you church, last year, 2023, goes through a leadership transition. When their lead pastor resigned, they didn't just lose a local lead pastor. They lost the overall lead pastor of the multi-church plus a local lead, right? He was leading what's called the Heritage Park campus, and he was also leading the full multi-church, meaning that those two other campuses, those two other local churches, those lead guys answered him. That was their lead pastor, right? That guy. And so in that sense, they needed to replace. So this is where I go, the question is kind of a hypothetical. Can Christian churches share resources? Can they do it? Sure. Yeah, 100%. And I think we've given some examples of how that can occur in a really positive way without being one organization. But that's not even the situation we're in here. The situation we're in is not in a hypothetical. Like this is a these are specific churches that had specific needs in this moment, and then took a specific course of action. We feel it seems good to the Spirit and to us to take this course of action after a year of like vetting and working and those kind of things together. So some of you had to figure out what's the next step. Do they hire an overall lead pastor that also leads that local church? And do they make an outside hire? Do they make an inside hire? Like, what do? And they assessed, and they went through months of prayer and dialogue on this. And they came to the point where they said, I think we might be able to lead the multi-church, right, in one way, or have the lead of the multi-church come from somewhere, and not have that lead be the local lead of Heritage Park. And at the size dynamics of those three churches at this point, at the life cycle of those three churches, the personnel, the two local lead guys who are two of the 6 elders, or 7 elders early on that were kind of making these decisions and trying to figure these things out. That was a thing that seemed good to the Spirit and to them as they began to do it. And so then they started to explore that with us, specifically around the idea of, hey, you guys are Acts 29, we agree totally doctrinally. And Andrew, you're leading that multi-church there. You're already embedded, obviously, at East Vancouver. You've been there 14 years. You're not going anywhere from there, but you're here locally. We've got growing relationship together. Might you be the guy that might take this lead role to lead the multi-church, but not lead this local, right? And maybe then hire this new local lead guy and kind of, could you lead that or whatever? And so that's part of the job description, is coming into this situation, and then as they sought me out and us out in that, they can't just go, hey, could we hire that lead pastor without like our elders being involved? I'm not going to go to our elders and be like, hey, so the church across town wants to hire me for their lead, but also I'll stay here for our lead. So that's where it was a complex situation where both elder teams had to, with a lot of discretion, dude, I can say this now, but like Jake Gamble, a good friend, preached here just like a week or so ago. In fact, I think maybe even this last Sunday here at East Vancouver. And Jake and I have known each other for years, one of my closest friends. And he was coming down months ago and knew kind of the process. And he'd been praying with me from the outside and everything, and knew the process we were kind of going through. And this was early, way before our church knew anything or whatever. And he said, hey, Andrew, so I was going to get up and start my sermon by saying, hey, so Andrew's interviewing for a new job, I heard, and it was just a joke, and I might have even told that on this podcast before, but that's there had to be major discretion there from both sides because this was a different thing. So it's not about this is the only model that would work. Every church should do this. Even when we told our church about this at Northwest Gospel, a couple months ago when this started going more public, or in July, even when we had those initial conversations, I said, this isn't for every church. This isn't even for every church that agrees doctrinally. But in this specific situation, they're already a multi-church. We're already a multi-church. We're in the same network. We agree doctrinally. And they looked and saw the resources we had as a church. I'm not talking even financially, just like personnel-wise, our eldership, our training, me as the lead pastor, and went, hey, Andrew has that kind of experience leading in that sort of an environment. We need that here. We're in the same thing. You guys have been trying to and praying about getting into North County and planting churches up here. Now, from the NGC side, were we planning on doing 3 at once, right? On planting 3 churches at once or on that? Of course, that's like what? You go from anybody we've talked to about this, it's like, wait, so at NGC, you're going from 2 churches, there's now 5 churches. At SVC, from 3 churches to now 5. That's This is why it took so long, so many months, so much planning, so much prayer, so much design, outside consultants, like all sorts of things that worked to figure out how to do this best. And dude, we're through it now. And so I think things you can't do when you're not linked organizationally, hiring, firing, linking culture, leading, like you said, that's some of the ceiling, right? Culture synthesis. You can collaborate together, but you can't lead change, right? In churches that aren't linked together in that kind of way, right? Because it will come down to that lead pastor, those elders. How do they want to do that? So we've looked at this and said, yeah, our elders together have said we want to do this together, and we think that we're so aligned doctrinally, and we have so much of a desire to be aligned culturally within our churches and missionally in our community, and we have that same heart. And like as we vetted that out, we're like, wow, there's so many ways that this complements this and this complements this. So why not? Why not do it together? So
yeah, I think there can be consultation, collaboration, but full-blown cooperation, we're able to do this now by making this legally, official, relationally. We really can join together in this work to a degree that I don't think we could do if we simply were in the same network or anything like that. So I think as I was involved in the process and observing the process, it got to a point for me, and I know for everyone, where it was more not of a question of why would we do this, but why not?
Yeah.
And I don't think there were any good reasons not to do it that weren't territorial, prideful.
Sure.
Like I think a lot of churches, we do kind of want to do our own thing, and we don't want. I mean, this is a beautiful thing that, like, when most of the time churches are splitting or dividing or there's pastors failing, this is a healthy churches coming together who really believe they're better together to accomplish the mission of reaching people in Clark County with the gospel. So is it rare and unique? Yeah, but like it's super beautiful, and I think God honoring. Like, why not do this? Why not work together? And again, it's not that everyone should do it, and there's a lot of different layers, but I think you're right. Providentially, we were in this moment. They were in this moment that I think was pretty clear God was leading us to this point.
Yeah, and what you said there about territorial and tradition, it reminds me of the offsite, remember? And we had this board where we were like putting up all the different things, like beliefs that we felt like were different, or non-negotiable things, or things that we're going to have to change, or fears that we had, right? And a group from our elder team and then their whole elder team was together doing that. And as we were doing that, there were a lot of things. There was stuff I put up on that board in terms of things that would have to change or whatever, that were like, as you assess them in the light of like, we agree doctrinally and like we're on the same mission together, it's like, yeah, that's just maybe something I got to let go. That's something that's not that big of a deal. Or worrying about what this might be, or what a branding thing would be, or how this would happen, or what schedule, or what if reputation takes a hit doing this, or what if that, and from both sides into a man, there were like every guy had things, nothing doctrinal, but had things like just practical that were like functionally this, I don't know about this, and fears and different things. And so in the light of day with all of us, and as we look at each other and then we see the doctrinal thing that's so aligned, we're like, wait, can we let these things go? Like, can we be open-handed? Can we change how we're doing this and agree to kind of work closer together? And I mean, you're doing that at Camas when, you and I have been, we preach the same text every week for like 2 or 3 years in your first years here. And then we split off differently a little bit the last, 3 years ago maybe, and started doing different book studies, still preaching expositionally, still at times preaching the same book. But as we're coming together with some of you, they've been going passage by passage, all linked together for years. And so you agreed, and we both agreed to go, hey, you know what, for this season coming up here, for the next year or two, for whatever, it's like, to really bring our preaching teams together, we're all going to preach the same text, right? We're going to do that. And so that's like, kind of a meeting in the middle, if you will, and walking over a bridge to try to collaborate more in order to be better together. And so, and that's going to be required out of everybody in this. Nobody, no elder, definitely no staff elder or lead pastor in this. Like that everything is going to be exactly the same, right? Because it's like you gotta flex and you gotta shift and you gotta pivot in order to work together, and that's required, So
Yeah, totally. Well, I think I'll end the podcast with a Psalm 133.
Love it.
Which all 5 churches are preaching this Sunday. Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. It is like the precious oil on the head, running down on the beard of Aaron, running down on the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord has commanded the blessing, life forevermore. We'll see you next week.